Finally, that word carries a weight tonight that deserves to be acknowledged. Finally, because it has not been easy to get here. Because the mind has been working since you woke up, and possibly since before that, since the dreams that were not restful, and the early morning thoughts that arrived before the alarm. Because the day had what days have, demands and transitions, and the particular friction of being a person moving through a world that moves in its own direction. Because you have been carrying things, some of them light, and some of them heavier than they should be for one person. And the carrying has made you tired in a way that goes deeper than the muscles. Finally, because you are here, in the dark, in whatever position the body found when it stopped needing to be anywhere or do anything, in this specific night that belongs to you in a way that the day, with all its obligations and witnesses, never entirely did. Finally, because the mind that has been running is ready, or is approaching ready, or is at least willing to consider the possibility that running is no longer required. This is the hour it has been working toward all day without knowing it. Not the sleep exactly, though sleep will come, but this, the threshold, the place where the day's momentum begins to release its grip, and the night's particular quality of stillness begins, slowly and without drama, to arrive. The Zen teachers who developed the practice of nighttime stories understood something important about this threshold. They understood that you cannot push a person through it, cannot instruct the mind into stillness, or argue it into peace, or provide enough good reasons for it to let go, that it decides to let go. But you can accompany someone to the edge of it. You can walk alongside the tired mind through the territory that leads toward rest, telling it stories that require nothing of it except presence, offering it images and voices and the particular warmth of being companioned in the dark until the edge appears and the crossing happens, not because of effort, but because the conditions were right and the mind, finally, was ready. You are at the edge now. Perhaps you have been approaching it for the last several minutes. Perhaps you are further from it than that, and the crossing will happen in the middle of the third story, or the fifth, or the seventh, at a moment you won't be able to anticipate or plan for. That is all right. The stories will be here. There is no rush. There is nowhere else to be tonight except here, moving toward the edge, with all the time in the world. Settle in. The first story is ready. Story. The master who never arrived early. In a province where several monasteries sat within a day's journey of each other, there was a custom of the abbots meeting periodically to discuss matters of shared concern. These meetings were held at different monasteries in rotation, which meant that the abbots sometimes had to travel, occasionally long distances, occasionally in difficult weather. And it was noticed over many years that one abbot always arrived at exactly the right time. Not early, never early, not late, never late, but with a precision that the other abbots found uncanny and eventually began to discuss among themselves. They could not figure out how he did it. They knew that travel times were variable. Weather, road conditions, unexpected encounters all affected how long a journey took. And yet, this abbot, regardless of the conditions, arrived when the meeting was ready to begin, and not a moment before. Finally, one of the other abbots asked him directly,
The journey itself is the
How do you
reality.
always arrive at exactly the right
Destination is
time?
merely a concept.
The abbot looked genuinely puzzled by the question. I leave when it's time to leave, he said. I travel at the pace the journey requires. I arrive when I arrive. But you always arrive
The
at
path
exactly
to
the right
enlightenment
time.
is often traveled in silence.
Do I?
Amidst the
The
gentle
abbot
rhythm
considered
of the
this.
falling rain.
Perhaps the right time is when I
The
arrive.
dewdrop and the lotus
The other
flower
abbot thought about this for
truly
several
one.
days. He had been assuming that there was a fixed right time, a time that existed independently of when the abbot arrived, and that the abbot was somehow
True
matching
peace
his
is
arrival
found
to
not
it.
in the absence of the
But
storm,
perhaps it was different
but
from
in the
that.
calm within it.
Perhaps the abbot had developed
Time
such a
slows
complete
here,
relationship with the
allowing
present
the water
moment,
to dance in the
such a
lantern
thorough
light.
presence in whatever was actually happening, that the meeting, when he arrived, was simply ready, not because he had calculated correctly,
Breathe in the serenity of this
because he had
sacred
not been
space.
fighting the journey.
With each step,
He had been in the journey,
release your worries.
and from inside
Rain
the journey,
washes away
the
dust of
journey
world,
always takes
leaving
exactly
only the
as long
moonlight
as it
and the
takes.
stillness of the night.
And
The
the
stone
arrival is
finds its
always
place,
exactly
bringing
when the arrival
stillness to the
is.
flowing stream of gravel.
You will arrive
Every
when you
ripple
arrive,
reflects the mind's journey.
not at the moment you have decided sleep should come, not according to the schedule the urgency is trying to
As the rain
impose,
falls upon
not
the ancient
because you
stone,
have
we
successfully
remember that
managed the
serenity is found
transition
not
through
in
the
the
right
absence
sequence of
storm,
thoughts.
but in the stillness of the mind.
When the journey is complete, the arrival happens, and the journey, the passage through this night, through these stories, through the gradual loosening of the day's grip, this journey takes exactly as long as it takes. You are in it, not fighting it, not calculating when it should be over. Simply in it, moving at the pace the journey requires. And the arrival, when it comes, will be exactly when the arrival is. That is enough. That has always been enough. Story 2. The Keeper of the Silence. There was a monastery that had a role unlike any other role in its community. The Keeper of the Silence. Not the keeper of a library, not the keeper of records, not the keeper of the bell schedule, the keeper of the silence itself. The monk who held this role had no specific duties in the conventional sense, no tasks to complete, no schedule to maintain, no visible work product to point to at the end of a day. What the keeper of the silence did was maintain a quality of presence in the monastery that made the silence possible. This is harder to describe than to experience. Visitors who came to the monastery often remarked on the quality of the quiet there, not just the absence of noise, which they might have expected from a contemplative community, but something deeper, a quality that they described variously as peace or presence, or simply a kind of stillness that the body recognized and responded to before the mind could name it. This quality was not an accident. It was maintained by someone, by the particular quality of awareness that the keeper brought to her role, a quality that had developed over decades of practice into something that could be felt by others without being directed at them. The way a room that has been warmed by a fireplace for hours has a warmth that persists even after the fire is low. Not the fire itself, the warmth that the fire made and that the room absorbed. The keeper had spent 40 years being very quiet, not just making no noise, being quiet in the deeper sense, in the sense of not adding unnecessary activity to the atmosphere of the place, not rushing where walking would do, not speaking where presence would do, not filling the air with words where the air was already full of something more valuable. When she retired from the role after 40 years, the monastery held a celebration, A young monk asked her what she had learned in 4 decades of keeping the silence. She thought about this for a long time. "That silence is not an absence," she said finally. "That it is something, a presence of its own, and that it can be cultivated, tended, maintained, the way a garden is tended, not by adding things, by removing what covers it, by creating the conditions in which it can be present. And when it is present," she said, "it does its own work. You don't have to do anything with it. It does everything that needs doing." She paused. "The silence heals," she said simply. "Given time and the right conditions, it always has. The silence that surrounds you right now is not an absence. It is the keeper's silence, the kind that has been here long before you arrived. That was here between the sounds of the day and between the words of these stories, and in the gaps between your own thoughts. It has been maintained by, not a person exactly, by the nature of things, by the way the world becomes quiet at certain hours in certain places, by the particular quality of darkness and stillness that a night in a room generates when the noise of the day has finally moved on. The silence is present. You don't need to do anything with it. It does its own work. Let it. The silence is tending you tonight. You are the garden it is tending. Rest in the tending. Story 3. The Boy and the Snow. There was a boy who grew up in a country where winter came hard and long. He loved snow, not in the nostalgic, adult way of someone who has been away from it long enough to forget the cold and remember only the beauty. He loved it with the direct, sensory love of a child who was entirely in it, who felt the temperature of it through his boots, who saw the particular blue of winter shadow on white ground, who heard the specific silence that snow creates, which is different from all other silences in a way that is impossible to articulate to someone who has not heard it. As he got older, the love became more complicated. He understood more about snow, its physics, its effects, its danger in certain forms. He acquired opinions about it. He could discuss its properties. He could evaluate a snowfall as heavy or light, early or late, inconvenient or welcome. And somehow, in all the understanding, the direct encounter had become less direct. He was with his nephew one winter. The nephew was 6, when the first snow of the season began. The nephew stopped walking and tilted his head back and opened his mouth. He was catching snowflakes on his tongue, not because anyone had told him this was what you did with the first snow, not because of any tradition or memory or idea about how winter should be received, because snowflakes were falling and his tongue was available, and this was the obvious, immediate, direct thing to do. The man watched his nephew and felt something he had not felt in years. He tilted his head back. He opened his mouth. The snowflake that landed on his tongue was cold and immediately not there. The briefest possible existence, a moment of cold and then nothing. And in that briefest possible existence, that one cold, immediate, completely present moment, something that had been complicated became simple again. Not the snowflake. The experience of being here, of being in the moment, of receiving what was arriving without the mediation of understanding or opinion, or the accumulated knowledge of how snow works. He stood in the snow with his mouth open for a long time after the nephew had moved on. And when he finally lowered his head, he found that he was cold and that his feet were wet, and that the snow was just snow. And also, that just snow, directly received, was everything. Is there something you can receive directly right now? Not something to understand, not something to evaluate, something to simply receive. The temperature of the air in the room. Is it cool? Is it specifically cool, in the way that only this room at this temperature on this night is cool? The weight of the blanket if you are covered, or the contact of the sheet, or whatever is against your skin right now. Specific, particular, the exact texture of this moment's contact. The sound of your own breath, not thinking about breathing, not watching the breath as a meditation object. Simply the sound of it. The soft arrival and departure, like the most patient tide. These are snowflakes, each one a briefest possible existence, each one cold on the tongue and then gone. Each one directly received, everything. Receive them, without understanding, without evaluation. Simply, mouth open, tongue out. Here. Story 4. The Weaver and the Knot. A weaver who had been making cloth for 30 years had a student who came to learn the craft. The student was talented, quick to see patterns, quick to understand the logic of the loom, quick to translate what he understood into competent execution. But he kept getting knots. The weaver watched him work for several days before saying anything.
Yes.
Then, one afternoon,
I wish this
she
moment
came
could
and sat
last
beside him.
forever.
"When you get a knot," she said, "what do you do?" "I try to undo it," he said. "Show me."
The thread of life
He
is
showed
often
her.
tangled. It
When a
requires
knot appeared in the
patience and
thread,
focus to
he attacked
unravel
it.
the knots.
Working at it with focused energy, trying to find the point where the tangle had begun, attempting to reverse engineer the mistake. The knot sometimes came undone, but often it became worse, tighter, more complex, harder to address the more energy was applied to it. "Now watch," said the weaver. When the next knot appeared in her own work, she stopped. She did not attack it. She set down what she was doing and simply looked at the knot, without touching it. Just looking. After perhaps a minute of looking, she picked it up and worked it, but differently than the student had. Gently, with pauses, feeling where the thread wanted to go rather than trying to force it where she thought it should go. Not reversing the mistake, but allowing the knot its own logic and following that logic toward the loosening. In less than 2 minutes, the knot was gone. "The knot," she said, "is a tangle. A tangle is thread that has lost its relationship to the pattern. The solution is not force. The solution is finding the thread's relationship to itself again." She looked at him. When you attack the knot, you are adding your own urgency to the tangle. You are making it more complicated, not less. The knot tightens under pressure because pressure is not what thread responds to. "What does thread respond to?" the student asked. "Patience," she said, "and the willingness to follow its own nature rather than impose yours on it." The student worked with knots differently after that. Not by becoming passive. He still engaged with them, still worked at them, but with a different quality. Patient, curious about the knot's own logic rather than insistent on his own approach. The knots resolved faster, not because he applied more skill, because he stopped applying force. The thoughts that are tangled tonight are the knot. You have perhaps been attacking them, working at them with focused energy, trying to find where the tangle began, attempting to reverse engineer the thinking that won't stop. The thinking tightens under that pressure. The solution is not force. The solution is the weaver's approach. Look at the tangle, without attacking it. Simply observe what is there, the shape of it, the specific quality of the thoughts that keep returning, the particular form the tangle takes tonight. And then, gently, with patience, feel for where the thread wants to go, not where you want it to go, where it wants to go. Often, very often, where it wants to go is simply through the thought that keeps coming to the other side of it, where it has said what it had to say and can release. The thought about whatever it is has something to say. Let it say it, fully, without fighting it. And on the other side of the saying, the releasing, the thread, having found its relationship to itself again, settling back into the pattern. The mind, having been followed rather than forced, quieting. Not because you conquered the knot, because you let the knot resolve in its own way, with patience, with the willingness to follow rather than impose. Story 5. The Lamp Lighter. In a city that had no electric lights, there was a man whose job was to light the lamps. Every evening at dusk, he walked the same route through the same streets, lighting the same lamps in the same order, filling with oil the ones that needed oil, trimming the wicks, cleaning the glass when they became clouded with smoke. He had been doing this for 22 years. People who saw him work often commented on his manner, not on his efficiency. Though he was efficient, he knew the route so well that he almost never needed to consult any record of it. But on something else, a quality of completeness in each lamp. He did not rush through one lamp to get to the next. He did not treat the lamps as identical objects requiring identical treatment. Each lamp, when he reached it, received his full attention for exactly as long as it needed. One evening, a young man walking the same street fell into step beside him. Do you ever get bored? The young man asked. The same route every night? The lamplighter paused at a lamp and began his work. Bored of what? He asked. Of the same thing, night after night. Is it the same thing? The lamplighter finished with the lamp, and they moved to the next. The lamps are the same lamps. The route is the same route. But the night, he gestured upward at the sky, which was doing something specific with the last of the light that it would not do again in exactly this way. The night is different every night. You pay attention to the night? The young man asked. I work in it, the lamplighter said. I have worked in it for 22 years. If I had not been paying attention, I would have missed 22 years of nights. He paused at the next lamp. This one, he said, needs more oil than usual. You can tell by the color of the flame. A lamp that is running low burns with a slightly different hue. He worked. I notice this because I am paying attention. Not because it matters to the city whether I notice, but because I am here in this night with these lamps. And it seems, he looked at the young man, a waste not to be. They finished the route together. The young man went home thinking about 22 years of nights, and a man who had not wasted a single one of them, not because he had done extraordinary things in them, but because he had been extraordinarily present in them. He thought about his own life and how many nights he had moved through without being in. And he began, the next evening and for many evenings after, to try to notice the specific quality of each night he was given. Not to analyze it, not to compare it to other nights, simply to be in it, and found, in the being in, something the lamplighter had known for 22 years. That each night, entered fully, is everything. That nothing is missing from a night you are actually in. This night, this specific, unrepeatable night that you are in. What is its particular quality? Not compared to other nights. Simply, what is it? The temperature of the air, the quality of the dark, the sounds that are present or absent, the feeling of the body in its specific position on this specific surface. The lamplighter noticed the color of a flame that was running low on oil. What is this night's equivalent? The small, specific, unrepeatable thing that is only here in this night and not in any other. Find it, not to understand it, not to remember it, simply to be in it. Because this night,
Embrace
entered
the
fully,
sweetness,
is
for
everything.
it is here that
Nothing is
wisdom
missing from a night
begins
you are
to grow.
actually in. You are in it. You have been in it all along. Everything is here. Story 6. The Monk at the Window. There was a monk who, in the last years of his life, spent much of his time at a window, not meditating at the window. He had meditated enough over the years and had come to understand that the formal postures were vehicles to somewhere, and that he had arrived at the somewhere, and that the vehicle was no longer required. He simply sat at the window and looked. What passed outside was not remarkable by any standard. A courtyard, a gate, a section of road beyond the gate, occasional travelers, the slow seasonal changes of a maple tree that stood to the left of the gate. Monks who visited him sometimes asked what he was looking at. This, he would say, gesturing at the window. But what
The true
specifically,
strength of the oak lies not in its
they would
hardness,
press.
but in its ability to bend,
This,
and the wisdom of
specifically,
age is found in stillness.
he would say. He was not being evasive. He genuinely found the question difficult to answer because the looking was not directed at anything specific. It was simply looking. The way clear water is clear without being clear of anything in particular. The way the sky is open without being open toward anything in particular. A young monk who had been struggling with his practice came to him one afternoon in desperation. "I cannot find stillness," she said. "I have tried every technique. I have sat for years. The stillness comes for a moment and then leaves. I cannot hold it."
Thank you,
The old monk looked at her. "Come sit with me," he said. She sat beside him at the window. "What do you see?" he asked. "The courtyard," she said. "The gate, a man walking past, the maple tree, some clouds. And where is the stillness?" She thought he was asking a philosophical question and began to formulate a philosophical answer. "In the practice," she started.
Patience.
"In
In the
the,"
silence, you
No.
will find your answer.
he said gently. "Where is it right now? In this room, in this moment?" She stopped. She looked around the room, at the window, at the courtyard, at the maple tree, which was doing something slow with the wind, and found, she didn't know how else to describe it, that the stillness was everywhere she looked. Not hidden, not present only in formal practice. Everywhere. in the movement of the tree, which was not separate from the stillness, but somehow part of it. The way sound is not separate from silence, but arises from it, in the light in the room, which was steady and unremarkable and full of stillness. In the old monk beside her, whose own stillness was so established that it had become part of the room. "It never left," she said slowly. "No," said the old
Rain
monk.
reminds us that
"It
even
cannot
in
leave.
darkness, there is
It is not the
tranquility.
kind of thing that can leave.
Find the stillness within
What
the
happens
sound.
is that attention goes somewhere else, and for a time the stillness is in the background rather than the foreground. But it is always here."
Washes the world,
He looked at the
leaving
maple tree.
only peace.
"Everything that has stillness in it," he said, "has it all the time. The tree is always still in the way that matters, even when the wind moves it. The sky is always still in the way that matters, even when there are clouds, and you," he looked at her, "are always still in the way that matters, even when the mind is moving." She went back to her practice and found it changed. Not because the mind had become quieter. It hadn't, not immediately. But because she had stopped looking for the stillness in the absence of movement. She had found it in the movement itself, in the way the river has stillness at its deepest, even while it moves, in the way the tree is still in its roots, even while the wind moves its branches, in the way the mind, underneath all its movement, is still in something that the movement never disturbs. The stillness is here. You have perhaps been looking for it in the absence of thoughts, in the gap between one thought and the next, in the moment when the mind finally goes quiet. But the stillness is in the thoughts, in the movement of them, the way the maple tree moves, in the arising and passing of them, the way clouds move through the sky that never moves, underneath every thought that is passing through your mind right now, something that the thought does not disturb. The stillness is there. Find it not by waiting for the thoughts to stop. Find it by going underneath the thought, the awareness that knows the thought. Underneath the awareness, something quieter still. Underneath everything, the stillness that cannot leave. Because it is not the kind of thing that can leave. It is here. It has always been here. Rest in it now. Underneath everything. Still. Story. The Night Watchman. In an old city, there was a night watchman who walked the streets from dusk to dawn. His job was protection. Watching for fires, for intruders, for anything that required the attention of the sleeping city's caretaker. It was a serious job, and he took it seriously. But over the years, something had happened to the walk. It had become, for him, the most complete hours of his day. Not because the protection was unimportant. It was, and he did not slacken it. But because the walking of the city in the dark had given him access to a version of the city that no one else knew. The city asleep was a different city from the city awake. The streets that in the day were full of commerce and conversation, and the particular noise of human activity were, at 3 a.m, something else. Quieter, obviously. But the quiet revealed things the noise had covered. The sound of the river that ran through the center of the city, audible now in a way it never was in the day. The specific acoustic quality of different streets and alleys. The way sound moved differently in the open squares than in the narrow passages. The stars, which the city's daytime energy somehow made invisible, even when they were there, suddenly present and numerous and occupying a sky that seemed much larger than the daytime sky. He walked the city at 3 in the morning and felt, consistently, something he could not have named precisely, but that he recognized and that he came to think of as the city showing him its actual face. Not its daily face, the face it showed to the commerce and the conversation and the activity. Its actual face, the one it wore when it was not performing for anyone, when it was simply being the collection of stones and water and streets and sky that it actually was, without the overlay of human busyness that the day required. And in that actual face, something he found more beautiful than any of the performances the city staged in its waking hours. A kind of honesty, a kind of peace that the day actively prevented. He retired after 30 years and missed the walks immediately, not because the work had been enjoyable. It had been cold and sometimes dangerous and often lonely, but because in 30 years of 3 in the morning walks, he had seen the city's actual face more clearly than most people see the face of anything they love. And that seeing had given him something. He was not sure exactly what to call it. But when people asked why he seemed so at peace, at home in himself in a way that was visible and that others found calming to be near, he thought of the walks and thought that maybe seeing anything's actual face without the performance was part of what peace was made of. What is your actual face tonight? Not the face you wear for others. Not the face that the day's performance requires. The face underneath. The one that is present when you are not performing anything for anyone, including yourself. The night watchman saw the city's actual face because the city wasn't performing for him. It was simply being itself at 3 in the morning for no one. You are being yourself right now for no one. In the dark, in the quiet, with whatever is actually here rather than whatever is usually presented. This is the actual face. What does it feel like? Tired, perhaps. Real. More spacious than the day face, perhaps, because it doesn't have to hold any particular expression. This face, this actual, unperformed, quiet face, this is where you rest. Not the face that has been managing things all day. That face is tired. This one, the one that appears at 3 in the morning, the one the night watchman loved. Rest in this face. It is the real one. It is enough. Story. The empty calendar. A student who had been rushing for as long as she could remember arrived at a teacher's home one afternoon and was shown on the teacher's wall a large calendar.
Measured not in numbers,
Every day
but
was
in the subtle
filled,
shades of ink
not with
and the
appointments.
warmth of the hearth.
The teacher's calendar was not an appointment calendar, but with ink. Each day's square was colored in, some
Why
days
this
darkly,
day, I
some
wonder?
lightly,
The
a few
ink
days
is
left,
barely there,
almost white.
Yet your hand returns
What is
to it
this?
always.
The student
The
asked.
sound of the shishi-odoshi
My life,
reminds us that
the teacher
time
said.
flows like water,
But what do the colors mean?
emptying and refilling in
The
its own
darkness
rhythm
is
and
how
purpose.
full the day was,
This
the teacher
square,
said.
marked in black,
A dark day
signifies
is a
the
day that was
time
very
for
full.
quiet contemplation.
A light day is a day with space in it. The student looked at the calendar. Most of it was dark. Very few days were light. Is that good? The student asked. All the dark days? The teacher was quiet for a moment. I used to think so, she said. I used to fill every day deliberately. I believed that a full day was a well-used day, and a well-used day was a good day, and a life of good days was a good life. She looked at the calendar. Then I got sick, she said. Not seriously. but sick enough to be in bed for 2 weeks, unable to fill any days. The days sat there, nearly white, and I lay in bed and felt, for the first 2 days, the guilt of it, the waste, all those hours not being used. She paused. And then something happened, she said. On the 3rd day, I stopped feeling guilty and started feeling the days, the unscheduled hours, the space in them, the way time moves differently when you are not feeling it. Slower, in some ways, but fuller, somehow. More present, more actually there. I recovered, she said. And when I went back to filling my days, I tried to leave some light ones in. Not many, but some. Days with space in them. Unscheduled hours that I protected from scheduling. She looked at the student. I found that the light days made the dark ones better, she said. That the space, when I gave it room, gave something back. Not productivity. Something harder to name. The sense of my own life, perhaps. The feeling of being in it, rather than moving through it on the way to somewhere else. The student went home and looked at her own life. It was very dark. She began, tentatively, to leave some light, and found, as the teacher had found, that the light days were not wasted. They were where she lived. Tonight is a light day on the calendar, or a light night, rather. Unscheduled, unfilled, protected by the hour and by the dark and by the exhaustion of a body that has been in enough dark days and is asking gently but clearly for some light. This hour is the light, not wasted, not the absence of something better, the thing itself, where you live. You are living here, right now, in the light hour, in the space, in the unhurried, unscheduled, unglamorous, essential experience of simply being here without a next thing waiting. There is no next thing tonight. There is only this, and this specifically, this exactly, this unrepeatable white square on the calendar. This is where life happens. Be in it, fully, for as long as the night allows. Story 9. The Monastery. Bell at midnight. There was a monastery where the bell was rung at midnight. Not at dusk, not at dawn, at midnight. The middle of the night, when most of the monks were asleep, and the darkness was complete, and the ringing seemed to have no audience and no purpose. A visiting scholar who was staying at the monastery for a season asked the abbot why. "What is the purpose of the midnight bell?" she asked. "No one is awake to hear it. It wakes people who are sleeping. It seems to serve no function." The abbot thought about this. "Come tonight," he said. "Listen." At midnight, the bell rang. The scholar was awake. She had been trying to sleep and had not managed it, and she heard the bell clearly. It was not a startling sound. It was a full, resonant sound that expanded outward from its source the way ripples expand from a stone dropped in water, except that sound expands in 3 dimensions, and the effect was of being inside the expansion, of the sound arriving from all directions simultaneously. She lay in the dark and listened to the bell fade, and in the fading, in the diminishing resonance of the bell as it gradually became too quiet to hear, something happened that she did not expect. The silence that followed was different from the silence that had preceded. Not quieter. Different. As if the bell had defined the silence by its presence. and then left the silence more fully itself by its absence, as if the silence had needed the bell in order to become properly visible. She lay in the silence that the bell had left and found it to be, she would write later, the most complete silence she had ever experienced. Not the absence of sound, which is what silence usually means, but a positive presence, a fullness, as if the bell, in ringing, had revealed something that was already there, but that the ordinary quiet had not made visible. She went to the abbot the next morning. "I understand," she said. "What do you understand?" he asked. "That the bell is not for the monks," she said. "It is for the silence. It rings so that the silence knows what it is."
Peace resides within the gentle
The
rain
abbot smiled.
and the quiet heart.
"Close," he said. "The bell rings so that those who hear it know what the silence is. Listen for the bell that is not ringing. Not literally. There may be no bell. But in the particular quality of whatever silence exists around you right now, there is something that a bell would reveal if it rang. The depth of it, the specific quality of it, the way this silence, in this room, at this hour, has its own sound, which is not quite sound, but which is not quite nothing either. What is the silence saying? Not philosophically, directly. What is its quality right now? Cool, perhaps. Spacious, old, in a way that the day's noise is not. The silence has been here longer than you have. It will be here after you are asleep. It is here now, surrounding you, available in all directions. The bell you did not hear has revealed it to you. And in the silence, the bell revealed. The rest is already present, not waiting. Here, complete. Rest in the revealed silence. Let it be what it is, which is everything the night has to offer. Story 10. The Master's Answer. At 3 in the morning, a student, unable to sleep, went to the Master's room at 3 in the morning. She knocked lightly.
I have been
Then,
expecting you.
when there was no response,
Please
slightly louder,
step inside.
the Master's voice came from inside. "Who is it?"
Excuse me.
"It's me,"
May I come in?
said the student. "I cannot sleep." A long pause. "Come in," said the Master. She entered. The Master was sitting up in his sleeping mat, not quite asleep, but not in his formal meditation posture either. Simply there, in the middle of the night,
You
awake,
carry much on your
because
shoulders,
someone had knocked.
but look closely at the flame.
"What do you
It
need?"
shows us the way, even
he
in
asked.
darkness.
It is clearer now.
"I don't know,"
Thank you.
she said honestly. "My mind won't stop. I have been lying awake for hours. I have tried everything I know. Nothing works."
Welcome.
The Master looked
You
at her
are
for a
safe
moment.
here. Let the
"Sit
rain
down,"
wash away your
he said.
worries.
She
Tell me,
sat.
what is it that you
Is
seek
anything
in
wrong?
This quiet place?
He asked.
Do you believe you have found
"Is
it
anyone
yet?
hurt? Is there an emergency?" "No," she said. "Is there something that needs to be done right now, in this moment, that cannot wait until morning?" She thought. "No," she said. "Then what is happening," he said, "is that you are awake, in the middle of the night, in a place that is safe, with a body that is unharmed, and a mind that is active." "Yes," she said. "And the problem," he said, "is that you believe this should not be happening." She was quiet. "The mind that is active at 3 in the morning is not broken," he said. "It is doing what minds sometimes do, being active at 3 in the morning. This is not a malfunction. It is not a sign that something is wrong. It is simply what is happening." "But I need to sleep," she said. "You need to rest," he corrected gently. "Sleep is one form of rest. But you are resting now, in a different way. You came here instead of lying in the dark, fighting the wakefulness. That was wise. You are sitting here, in the quiet, with someone who is not alarmed by your wakefulness. He looked at her. Are you in pain? He asked. No, she said. Are you in danger? No? Is there something you need right now that you do not have? She thought about this for a long time.
The heart finds its
No,
true path.
she said finally.
The rain reminds
Then,
us to listen closely.
He said, you have everything you need. You are resting in a room with everything you need in the middle of the night.
Allow
This
the sound
is
of the
not a
rain to
problem.
guide you
This
deeper into the present
is a
moment.
night.
Simply breathe.
She sat with him
and
in
be still.
silence for a while longer and found, not because he had said anything particularly profound, not because the sitting
True
had been a
safety is
meditation
not
or a
found in the
therapy or a
absence of
practice,
storms, in the
but because she had
stillness
been in
within
the
them.
presence of someone who was genuinely untroubled by the situation, who was not performing calm, but actually resting in the middle of the night in a room with a student who could not sleep, found that the trouble loosened. Not completely, not all at once, but enough that when she went back to her room, the
In
darkness
stillness of
felt
the night,
different.
the rain whispers secrets
The
from
wakefulness,
water,
named
reflecting
and
the
witnessed
silent moon
and
above the
declared not a
leaves.
problem by someone she
In the
trusted,
quiet solitude
had
of the
lost
mist,
some of its
the
urgency,
path to wisdom reveals itself.
and the urgency, losing its grip, allowed the body to do what it had been trying to do all along. Rest. Not dramatically, simply, in the way that all genuine rest happens. Quietly, without announcement, in the space that opens when the fighting stops. Are you in pain? Are you in danger? Is there something you need right now that you do not have? Take a moment with each question. Really consider them. And if the answer to each is no, if you are here, in this dark, with a body that is unharmed, in a place that is safe, with nothing required of you right now that you cannot give, then you have everything you need. And what is happening right now, the wakefulness, the thoughts, the not yet sleep, this is not a problem. This is a night, your night, belonging to you completely, not requiring resolution or management or the grim determination to overcome it. Simply a night in which rest is available, in which sleep will come when it comes, in which the fighting, released, allows the body to do what it has been trying to do. The master was untroubled. You can borrow his untroubledness tonight, not permanently, just for these hours. There is nothing wrong. You have everything you need. This is a night. And in the night, in exactly this night, with all it contains and all it does not, the rest that your mind has finally been given permission to find. Find it. It is here. It was always here. Good night. There is a word in Japanese, ma, that has no direct equivalent in English. It refers to the pause, the space between, the interval that gives meaning to what comes before and after it. In music, ma is the silence between notes, without which the notes would be noise. In architecture, ma is the space between walls, without which there would be nowhere to live. In conversation, ma is the pause that allows what was said to land before what comes next is spoken. The Zen tradition valued ma enormously, not because what happened in the ma was more important than what happened in the filled moments, but because the ma was what allowed the filled moments to be themselves. Without the pause, without the space, without the interval, everything collapses into an undifferentiated rush in which nothing can be fully experienced because nothing has room to be. Tonight is ma. not in the sense of being empty. Tonight has contained quite a lot: stories, teachings, the quiet company of words moving through the dark, the gradual loosening of what the day had bound, but in the sense of being the space between the day that has ended and the day that will begin, between one chapter of your life and whatever the next one holds, between the self that navigated today and the self that will navigate tomorrow. Who will be the same self and different? The way all selves are both across the night's passage. Ma is not nothing. Ma is the most important thing, the thing without which everything else loses its shape. You are in the Ma, the space between, and in the space between, everything that the busy parts cannot contain. The rest, the restoration, the quiet integration of what was, and the quiet preparation for what will be. You are not in a gap. You are in the most essential part, the pause that gives everything its meaning. Rest in the Ma. Let it be what it is, the space that makes tomorrow possible. A Zen teaching from the tradition of Huang Po, a master who lived more than 1,000 years ago, says this: the foolish reject what they see, not what they think. The wise reject what they think, not what they see. Tonight, you have spent time with both. With what you see, the stories, which offered images and characters, and the specific, concrete sensory world of each narrative. The lamplighter and his lamps, the boy and his snowflake, the night watchman and the city at 3 a.m, the bell at midnight and the silence it revealed, and with what you think, the commentary that arrived alongside the seeing, the analysis, the interpretation, the mind's habitual reaching for the meaning behind the thing. The teaching is not that the thinking is wrong. The teaching is about the order. See first. Be in the thing before being in the thought about the thing. Let the lamplighter's lamp be a lamp before it is a metaphor. Let the snowflake be cold on the tongue before it is a teaching about presence. Let the bell be a sound before it is a lesson about silence. The seeing first, the direct encounter with the specific and the immediate. This is what the tired mind needs to return to rest. Because the tired mind has been in the thinking, has been in what it thinks about what happened, what it thinks about what might happen, what it thinks about what it thinks, and the return to seeing,
Even the smallest drop holds
to the
a
specific,
universe of light.
the immediate, the
The
simply
temple
here,
waits
is the return to the
patiently
body,
through night's gentle
the breath,
rain.
the dark, this moment, which is where rest lives. See the dark, not think about the dark, simply see it, the dark that is here, surrounding you, the specific dark of this room on this night. See the breath, not think about the breath. See it, or rather feel it, which is the body's version of seeing, the specific movement of this breath, this one, happening right now. See the moment, the specific, unrepeatable, completely present moment that is right here. Not what it means, not what it is leading to, simply what it is. The seeing, done simply and without analysis, opens the Ma. And in the Ma, the rest that the thinking was always trying to find by thinking its way there. It cannot be reached by thinking, only by seeing. You are seeing now. The Ma is open. Rest is here. Everything that needed to happen tonight has happened. The stories came and were received. The teachings moved through. The familiar loops of the thinking mind slowed gradually, as the stories offered something more immediate to attend to, the urgency that powers the restless mind lost, over the course of this hour, some of the fuel that keeps it running. The mind is different now than when it began, not fixed, not permanently altered, not enlightened or resolved or finished with its difficulties, but different, slower, more spacious, closer to the rest that was always available beneath the urgency. The MR has been created. The space between the day and the day is open. And in the space, the rest that the Zen teachers pointed at. Not the rest that follows sufficient effort. Not the rest that is earned by sufficient processing. The rest that is simply here when the space is allowed. When the MR is honored. When the pause is received as what it is. Not absence, but the most essential presence. The space that gives everything its meaning. The silence that gives the bell its sound. You are in it. The mind is resting in it. Finally, not because something was conquered, because something was released. The urgency, the belief that the rest was somewhere else. The idea that enough thinking would produce the peace that only the stopping of thinking can provide. Released. And here in the release, in the in the space between, the mind finally resting, as it always could, as it was always going to, when the conditions were right. The conditions are right. The mind is resting. Finally. Good night. The ancient teachers left instructions for students who could not sleep. Not techniques. The masters were skeptical of techniques, which tend to turn the mind toward performance and away from presence, but instructions in the older sense, pointings toward something that could not be said directly, but could be found by going in the right direction. One such instruction, found in different forms across several traditions. When you cannot sleep, do not try to sleep. Instead, rest your attention on whatever is most present, not whatever is most urgent. Whatever is most present. The urgent things are usually in the future or the past. The present thing is always here. What is most present right now? Perhaps the breath, which is always the most present thing available, always immediate, always right here in the body, never somewhere else. Perhaps a sensation, the specific weight of the body, the specific temperature of the air, the specific quality of the contact between skin and whatever touches it. Perhaps the sound of the night. Whatever sounds are present, however faint, however unremarkable. Rest attention there, not to achieve something, not to produce a result, not as a technique with an expected outcome, simply because the present thing is here, and here is where rest lives, and resting attention in the most present thing is the most direct route to the here that contains the rest. The breath, the most present, the most immediate, the most always here. Rest there. Let the urgent things exist in their own time. Right now, in this time, there is only the breath, and the breath is enough. It is everything. It is here. One last story, the shortest one, the most complete. A monk asked a master, "What is peace?" The master was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "This." The monk looked around, at the room, at the afternoon light, at the master, at his own hands. "This," he said. "This," said the master. The monk went away and thought about it for years. And slowly, very slowly over the years, he began to understand what the master had meant. Not this as in any particular thing. Not this room, this afternoon, this master. This as in whatever is here, whatever is present, whatever is actual right now. This. Peace is not somewhere else. Peace is not on the other side of something. Peace is not after something, or before something, or instead of something. Peace is this, whatever this is, the dark room and the tired body, and the mind that has finally begun to settle, the breath that is moving, the night that is present, the rest that is arriving. This, the Master's answer, the most complete answer ever given to that question, and it is available right now, in this, the this that is right here, the this that you are in, the this that has always been peace. If you could be in it completely, rather than looking for peace somewhere, it is not. You are in it. This. Rest. Good night.